What's up, guys? Matty here. Today we have the new big plugin release from FabFilter Pro-Q4. Pro-Q4 is to me like what Apple is to computers, or maybe more like the Steve Jobs Apple, but you just know it's going to be a good product, a new update. It's going to be great. I actually purchased this plugin without even looking at any of the new features that it has. I was just like, I know this will be great. I know all my clients will be using it. I'm going to need it either way. So I bought it and then started looking at what the new features are. So in today's video, we're actually going to go over the new features. I'll show you how they work and what they've added. A lot of really cool stuff. Before we do get started, if you need your songs mixed or mastered, hit me up at mixandmastermysong.com. You can actually find my FabFilter presets for mixing, vocals, and mastering there as well. Let's go. All right, guys, so here's FabFilter Pro-Q4, the new GUI. It looks basically the same, but you notice it's been updated. Everything looks just a little different, a little bit better, a little clearer. The meters are different. You notice the knobs are different. This looks a bit different. And it's all just, slight stuff that I think makes this work better. It feels snappier, a little smoother when you move things around. That could just be me, but it just feels a little better. All welcome stuff to a plugin that really didn't need any changes, but it looks a little newer, feels a little fresher, a little more 2025, I guess we'll call it. But let's get into some of the features. And the first thing I want to talk about is the instances view, I guess you call it. And if you look down here, you'll see this track name is here. It's called Kick, and that's the name from my DAW. And if I click that, it puts me into this new mode, and you'll see all the plugins that I have FabFilter on are now in this view mode, and you can, zoom it in and out. You can even magnify it. So it's it reminds me a lot of the Apple Dock. Make this smaller, then magnify it bigger, however you want it. I don't know if I like to magnify yet or not, but we'll see. I think just since we have just this limited amount of tracks, let's just do it like this. And then if you want, you can go into each track just by hitting right here. And now I can zoom in and maybe do some slight EQ stuff. Press on the black outside and it goes back out. So really easy way to get through your tracks. And you'll notice as I zoom into this one, this little box comes up here and shows you all the different tracks that are available. And then I can switch over here, I can switch over here and scroll up and down. So really cool ways to be able to navigate your session. Now, the other cool thing about this view is if we zoom back into the kick, if you see this little button here, it's called the collision reference. And if I press it, you will notice something that all of a sudden, the 808 is now lighting up and is showing me where these two instruments are having conflict. And obviously that makes sense. This is the kick and this is the 808. Now we can now zoom into our 808 and see where that's happening. And then, you can notice I've kind of previewed the video. I have this here. And let's say we want to make this dynamic. You just click on the arrow and go make dynamic. And we can bring this down, pull our Q in a bit. And now this is going to duck just on that frequency. Now, let's say we wanted to sidechain that to the kick so that it only ducks when the kick hits. That's where this view becomes a little bit limited. You can do just about everything in this view except dynamic changes. That's one thing you cannot do. But everything else is here. You can change your shape, change your slopes, change your stereo placement. You can copy here and paste to another plugin. Another instance or view, whatever you want to call it. So you can do a lot within this view section, but let's move over. Let's X out of here and let's close this one and let's move over to the 808. And the cool thing is we already have this. Well, it's still there because the collision reference is on, but now we can actually go into this and dial in with the dynamics, right? And you'll notice if we go to the dynamics, there's some new stuff here. We now have something we've all wanted, which is attack and release here, threshold, all of that. And so we can make a faster release and you see that it starts moving faster, and even a faster attack. Once we get this, a side chain, we can make it so it's just a fast attack, fast release, and just ducks out the kick transient. Now to do that, what you do is hit this side chain button. And then at least in Studio One, all I got to do is click here and select kick, and that's good to go. And now you'll notice whenever just the kick's hitting, it's ducking, right? And that's just with the side chain. So that's a really quick way to make just your kick duck, just using the view mode and then switching over to the side chain. Really fast and intuitive. So I like that. I like the ability that we can now change our attack and release and the threshold. The other really probably even bigger mode to all of this is Spectral. And what that does is that turns this into more of a Soothe 2 type EQ, which is pretty wild. Now you have like Soothe 2 built into FabFilter, except, you know, just whatever frequencies you want. And you'll notice when I move it up here more, it's a little, doesn't show so much down here, so we're just going to move it up a bit. You'll notice that the EQs changed quite a bit. If we go back just to regular compression mode, it's just ducking, you know, broadband kind of EQ dependent on the cue. If we go to spectral mode, you'll notice that it's changed quite a bit. Now you notice over here, this little slider has shown once we go into spectral mode. Now, if I move it down here, it's going to be more of a wider spectral EQ curve. I guess that's the best way I could say it. But if we move it up all the way here, it's going to be a little tighter and a little more specific. So not maybe the greatest example with kick and bass because it's a wider frequency stuff, but it's, if you notice there, if it's up there, it's a lot tighter. And if I move here, it's a bit wider and more of just taking the whole frequency out. So, you know, with vocals and stuff like that, you get really specific, make it super tight and just grab those notches you want to take out. I think I've shown this on my video before, some of my FabFilter videos before. I'll go and just select the frequencies from the vocal and duck them down with dynamics. This will be a new way to do this, switching to spectral mode, and will hopefully make it even better as far as pulling out some of the nasty frequencies that you don't want in a vocal. All right, so the next thing I want to show you guys is something I thought they would add, and they did. Well, I actually thought they would add two things: spectral dynamics, which they did add, and they added this, which is harmonics or saturation to the clean FabFilter. And this is pretty interesting because now, you know, you still have the clean mode, which it's always default to, that we've all used FabFilter for years with. But now you have two different saturation modes. You have subtle and warm. Subtle is rather subtle. You know, I've only had this plugin for a few hours, so I haven't played with it a ton to hear the differences, but it did change the tone, but just not much. Warm changes the tone quite a bit more. Warm is more of a tube-based harmonic saturation sound, and that one you can hear a bit more. Just so you guys can see some of the harmonics, everyone likes to see things. I just got this tone generator on at, what we got, like 120 Hertz or something. And this is the clean mode here, right? And if I click it again, click down here, this is where you choose the different modes. Here's subtle, and you will notice it is rather subtle. Let me turn the gain up a little more on here. And we don't see too much going on. But then when you hit warm, you see some of the harmonics starting to pop up. And earlier when I actually was testing this, I felt like I noticed it more. Let me gain this up a bit more, but it's not too much. But yeah, you notice the harmonics there. And if we go back to subtle, some of the overtones go away, but they're just a bit more subtle. Here they are. You can see them much lower on the warm. So it's, you know, definitely adding different harmonics in there, which is saturation. Let me just play this. We'll play this on a bass so you guys can hear it and see if you can hear it, big difference or not. So those are the different modes. I definitely hear something different with the warmth. It does feel like there's a little more harmonics added. Subtle, I can't tell if it's just me thinking that something's been changed. It's a low in 808, so it's a little hard to tell, but not sure I'm hearing a huge difference between clean and subtle, but definitely hearing a big difference between clean and warm. So I think it's a cool feature that's added. I'm not sure how much I'll use it or not. We'll see as time goes on. You know, there's so many other harmonic and saturation plugins out there now that I've been using for a while that it's like, I don't know if I need more at this point. But it's a cool feature to, you know, be added to a plugin. That way, really, you know, you could use this. I mean, you could use Pro-Q4 on everything only before, but now it's just giving you more features to play with. All right, so the last thing I want to show you guys is this new draw feature. And at first, when I first looked at it, I'm like, this is kind of cool, but I don't know how much I'll use it. But it works in two different ways. One is here. If you've noticed while I've been, you know, messing with a plugin, if I go places, you see these little like highlights, and that's where you can just click and it's going to do that. Now, it kind of did that before, but you have to pull it up. But now you see these little white lines that develop, and you can just click them and they'll, create the EQ curve. Another option though is there's this draw mode down here. And if you click this, and let's say you have like just kind of an EQ curve you want to use for a certain thing to start off with or whatnot. If you hold, you see this is highlighted yellow now, right? It's moving the band around as I move my mouse. But if I click down here and then move up, and I can draw an EQ curve like that and make a bunch of points ready to go, then EQ from there. So it's a cool new feature that I'm not 100% sure how it's going to be used. It's one of those things like Apple, bringing the reference back to Apple, they'll come up with some new feature like, it's cool, whatever. And then 2 years later, it's like, just part of your life. I feel like this might be one of those things where like at first I'm like, it's cool. And then eventually I'm going to be like just drawing everything, Another way just could be cool is creating a new, bringing an instance and say you just want 4 bands. You can just click this and just draw a few bands, and then there you go, and then move them from there. All right, guys, so that is a brief overview of FabFilter Pro-Q4. There is more to it that I might not have gone over, but those are the main features that I saw that I liked that I think will be useful for all of us. Like Spectral mode has different resolution types you can use, which I guess you have to be careful with because with linear phase EQ and different modes, it can get weird. But, there's a bunch of different small things like that. Make sure to check out their manual for more of that information. I'm sure Dan will be dropping a video soon that will be, 10 times better than mine. That will show you everything and how to use it perfectly. Anyway, let me know what you guys think about the new features in the comments below. And if you need your songs mixed and mastered, hit me up at mixandmastermysong.com. Talk to you guys soon.